Hey everybody, welcome to the recap of session 12 of campaign 4. Uh, we're still in the dungeon. The session starts, we last left off in a big room that was like 30 by 30 feet and had about like 20-foot high ceiling with some cobwebs. And there was a chest on a small platform that was raised off of the ground with a mural of a tree with a black onyx in it that was seemingly devoid of spider webs. We went into the room. We went into the room. Scuzz ran into the room towards the chest to go and loot it because he's a goblin. He's doing goblin things. Although he of course checks for traps, finds some little holes in the ground where some spears might come out of. He notices a nearby skeleton that was dead from someone else that was in this room before, and tries to use his spear that was found on the body and some bones to plug up the holes to keep the spears from attacking him. He biffed the disarming, but he still dived out of the way. So, mission accomplished, same end result. And after doing that, checks to make sure that the chest isn't, locked and goes ahead and tries to open it. Before he can do that, the mural comes to life, and a big, shadowy, cloaky, creature, I would say figure, but this wasn't a humanoid creature by any means, comes over, and much like the magic carpet or magic rug that we found before, wraps him up and starts strangling him to death. When that happened, combat starts. This is a little placement wise. Cyrus, who is still a panda, and then we don't know that at this point, was in the doorway or in the hallway going into this room that hasn't entered yet, and Desperado was also there with him. Durian, my character, was going with Scuzz to make sure that he didn't immediately get murdered by a trap, and if he did, he'd be there to help. Notice as Scuzz is being suffocated by a shadow figure of some sort, a giant spider, a phase spider, appears into the room using its name, and a bunch of different little tiny little spiders that its babies form into a swarm. We start combat. The phase spider goes after Desperado, who's standing in the doorway of the room, and he is effectively dueling this creature as Cyrus, as a panda, is fighting off his own unique enemy, a swarm of spiders. And Durin is trying to kill the shadow creature without viciously murdering Scuzz inside of it through, maybe just cleaving through and hitting him a little too hard. Combat proceeds for a bit until Scuzz is able to get away from the trapper, and he moves to the side of the room and sets up his turret to go take shots at it. We find out it's a trapper, that's what it's called. And the phase spider is just digging into Desperado, who, after it disappears, as it's been disappearing between each turn, moves to go up with the trapper and try and kill that as well. Spider comes back in and gets a vicious critical hit on Desperado and knocks him out clean, and he fails the his con save as well and gets paralyzed, meaning that he's down to 0, but he's stable, but he's gonna be like that for an hour, and the cleric's a panda, and none of us have anything that could probably help with paralysis, so he's out of the fight for now. Uh, Durin is still, fighting the trapper, trying to kill it and, wear it down first before focusing on the phase spider. The phase spider goes after Scuzz afterwards, but fails to hit him. And uh, Cyrus, in his own little like side combat almost, is, taking down these phase spiders, those little babies, slowly but surely. Gets the swarm to halfway where it, becomes a different stat block, and they decide to disperse and run away, leaving him free to then go up and kill both of the monsters. That's right, the little panda guy gets the final hit on both the phase spider and the trapper in that order as well. I mean, he's a panda. He's still a big creature, so he was able to do the damage, but it was just a little funny. Um, the combat resolves. Both the creatures are dead. We make sure that Desperado isn't actively dying because we don't know for sure what the poison is doing to him. We make sure that he's alive, and then sit around for a little bit and decide just to loot the chest and see what's in there. And we find a magical candle through divining. Excuse me, sorry, divining process. Are able to learn that it's a magical candle that dispels 5 feet of magical and normal darkness, which will come in handy pretty soon. Into this process of, trying to figure out what this candle is and waiting for the paralysis to leave Desperado, Cyrus, finally after an hour of in-game time, has turned back into Cyrus. He's no longer a panda. He's with us. A little while later, Desperado it comes out of his coma. We, heal him, make sure he's not, too low, and then we try and we discuss our next path forward. Eventually, we go back to the first room of the dungeon with the black obelisk that opened up the pathway into this, series of rooms. We use the candle to dispel a wall that leads us into the next part of the dungeon, which was a immediately dark room full of magical darkness that we can only see 5 feet into with the candle lit, and a bunch of wind coming from the center of it. And through some checks, we were able to decipher that there's a bit of a jagged, not like smooth, but jagged, roughshod circle in the center of the room with air coming up and out. And in that room is also a bunch of pixies that are shooting little darts at us, being annoying. We keep thinking of ways to get down. Durian ties everyone off on a rope and tells Scuzz to just go get it and jump down that hole. And Scuzz does so. Thankfully, he's pretty light and he doesn't have that much equipment, so he's able to use kind of like Batman, float in the air a little bit like an indoor, those little indoor areas where you can go and you can, parachute and, free fall. We, drag him back out after realizing that's not, a great way to do this and use a hunting trap to decipher how long the fall is, about 70 feet or so. Pretty big hole. And Cyrus, now that he's back with us, takes some equipment that he got lying around and uses his Forge Cleric feature to build a technological marvel of the age, a 70-foot long collapsible ladder in multiple sections to then get it into the room, put it down, collapse it, and have it slide all the way down so we have a nice safe passage. We build a ladder, we get into the hole, and me and the other strongest boy, Cyrus, are trying to, hold it in place so it doesn't just fall and just, be inoperable and not be able to be used. Some strength checks are made. During the big orc succeeds, Cyrus does not succeed and gets, falls over the side into the hole and takes some pretty bad falling damage. Everyone else climbs down the ladder to try and get to the bottom of the hole. Scuzz makes it just fine. Desperado and Durian, they get about halfway down before they get blasted by some wind, and they both fail their dex saves to hold on. Desperado, he's fine. He's basically Batman with his dexterity score. He glides all the way down the bottom of the hole just fine. Durian falls off and lands like a rock, taking some some damage. We come to a tunnel. It's about 6 feet tall. Too tall in order to, kind of Jenga the ladder with us, so we have to leave it behind. Probably a good idea since we might have to backtrack. And we go down this tunnel for a little bit until we meet another hole going up with, pretty clear and clean walls with no handholds except for one. It's about 30 feet up. Durian starts climbing to make sure that we're, going to be alone. And if someone's going to get hit, might as well be him. Climbs to the top and gets kicked in the face by some redcaps. There's 3 redcaps at the top. That's pretty bad. They got some iron boots on. That's not good. With some vicious kicking that he's avoiding, he gets to the top of the wall, stands up, and 2 of the redcaps, in a pretty sick metal move, go to drop kick him, and they miss and they whiff and they fall down that 30-foot hole. So now there's just 1 redcap. 2 of them are at the bottom. Desperado was able to make his checks to get back up to the top of the hole with Durian, and that's where we left off. 2 people on top, 2 people on below, 1 redcap at top, 2 redcaps at the bottom, and they kick hard, pretty bad damage. Anyway, that's the recap for session 12 of campaign 4. Funnily enough, this episode was also lost to time, so this is the only record of it. You gotta deal with it, and I'll see you guys later.